gross. That was gross. Welcome to Raptors postgame. I'm JD Bunkis. Joined as always by Donnovan Bennett. Raptors lose 99-110 to the Boston Celtics. Tied at 94. At one point in the fourth quarter, Celtics went on a 10-0 run, which was the biggest lead of the game. And they never looked back. Just a bit of a... I'm not going to say it was debacle, but that was an ugly one. The Celtics have now won 6 straight. They're only 2 games back of the Raptors for first in the Eastern Conference. The Raptors, over that same span, they're 3-3. They haven't been playing their best basketball lately. And, man, DeMar DeRozan said it heading into this game that this is the time of the season where teams are going to give them their best shot. And the Celtics, without Kyrie Irving, they did that tonight.
You know what the Celtics did tonight?
Finished in the fourth?
Well, they played defense in the fourth. We saw this a bit when they played Utah, and the Raptors saw it in the fourth quarter. And I think this is a symptom of what the Raptors are going to see moving forward, especially if your guy, CJ Miles, and I'm using that your guy sarcastically because the exasperation with which you are watching CJ Miles, I feel for you. They play a little 2-3 zone, and the Raptors were rolling offensively. 30 in the first, or 33 in the first, 22, 29 in the third, 15 in the fourth. And a lot of that was in garbage time when they were down by 10. Only scored 5 after the 5:26 mark. They went 2-3 zone. Serge for a large spell was out of the game because he had the 5 fouls. CJ Miles in the game to give the team some stretchability, and he wasn't stretching anything. And in fact, he was shooting air balls.
Yeah, let's start with CJ Miles, actually, because I'll ask you just this question. What do you think the biggest reason for the loss was tonight? Was it just the lack of defense? Was it sloppiness with the turnovers? Was there one guy that you isolated? Because I don't want to point the finger completely at CJ Miles. Like, you don't lose a basketball game because of one guy. But shooting 0 for 6 from 3 tonight, -9, only 3 points. He was dreadful, just all night long. Really dreadful. A bunch of turnovers, 4 turnovers somehow. Like, guy played 20 minutes, turned the ball over 4 times, and had 5 personal fouls and was -9. Missed all of his shots, every single one of them. The only points that he scored was on a really, really bad closeout by Celtics rookie Nader, where he hammered him at the three-point line after he'd been missing and finished that third quarter terribly. So, again, not the whole reason why you lose, but holy crap. That's CJ Miles' worst game of the entire season right there. And in a spot where you probably need a little bit more from him, I thought Dwayne Casey was trying to show him, like, they were behind. So you need his three-point shooting out there. But trying to give him a little bit of confidence in the final few minutes might have been a bit of a mistake. I would have rather seen Fred VanVleet. I didn't really understand OG Anunoby being out there for the final few. Again, it's about who can DeMar DeRozan trust late in these ball games? Who can Kyle Lowry trust late in these ball games? And DeRozan only had 4 points in the fourth quarter. He had played an excellent game, 28 points through 3.
Well, I mean,
and all of a sudden,
the team only had 13 points in the fourth quarter.
That's what I mean. But I guess, but that's what I'm saying, though. There's a possession where DeRozan, late in the clock, feeds it over to OG Anunoby. OG dribbles it off his foot, goes the other way. And his other option is CJ Miles, who airballs a 3, gets scared on a closeout. Somebody's got to hit a shot. Somebody's got to do something. Oof.
To me, the biggest issue, the turnovers is big. 15, it's too many empty possessions against a really good defensive team. But to me, it's the shooting from 3. You mentioned CJ Miles and not being able to hit a shot. He hasn't been able to hit a shot for a while. 5 of 29 from 3 of his last 29. He's only hit 5. And this team came out of the gate. We mentioned how they jumped on him in the first quarter. They looked so good from 3. Kyle hits his first 3-point shot. They hit their first 4 3-point shots. They hit only 4 of their next 31 in the game. And again, give Boston credit. They made the adjustment, went into a zone which stymied Utah, stymied the Raptors. If the Raptors aren't going to have CJ Miles hit threes, who's hitting threes for them?
Yeah, it's a good question. Serge Ibaka brought it tonight. We'll talk about rested Serge a little later in the show. But since the All-Star break, and this isn't including tonight, but in 16 games, CJ Miles shooting 33% from deep. That's really not good enough for a guy who's, like, what's his other attribute? What's CJ Miles' secondary attribute for this basketball team? He's not a good defender. He's clearly not a very good ball handler. I've said time and time again, dude frustrates the hell out of me every time he puts the ball on the deck. One of the worst possessions of the entire game is you looked at me and said he should have pulled up for a 3 when he went out in transition when we were watching the game together and he tried to go to the basket and make a bucket. I said, why does it have to be one or the other? Like, I just feel like CJ Miles right now is in a spot where if the Raptors had a stat for, or if there was just a stat in basketball for dumb plays per 48 or poor decision-making per 48, and it extended past just turnovers, but just bad looks and bad plays overall, I think CJ Miles would be leading them. And that's saying something because Serge Ibaka has been terrible in March. But again, for your gunner to be shooting 33% after the All-Star game in 16 games, heating up to the playoffs, in a time where you're supposed to be, again, building that trust. We talked about this after the Nets game. DeMar Carroll, when he left town, said that DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry didn't trust players. They didn't trust their teammates. I don't really think it's a great trust-building exercise if you're going to be taking every single shot that is even close to available for you, which CJ does. And again, you and I debate this all the time. It's one thing when you're out there with DeLon Wright and Fred VanVleet and the bench mob, and they couldn't get their scoring going early in the season, and you're coming off screens and you're 3 feet behind the three-point line and you're catching and shooting. It's another thing when you're out there and you're the fourth option. When you're out there with DeMar DeRozan and you're out there with Kyle Lowry and you're coming up in transition and you decide to pull up for a really bad look, a contested three-point shot. He's got to be better with the shot selection. And again, I want to get back into the turnovers and the sloppiness and what happened in the fourth quarter because, again, like we're getting some tweets right now. Joey Beans, he tweeted in what's the reason for Raptors loss tonight at @bluehair_lawyer. Said turnovers. Emmy Caesar or Caesmar, CSAMER, tweeted in, where is the bench? Also, the defense has to tighten up. Again, there was a lot of reasons for tonight's game, but it's really hard not to focus in on your gunner when, again, he goes 0 for 6 from deep and makes those types of decisions and just, like he shouldn't have been ejected late in that game, but I wish he'd been ejected earlier because he couldn't play tonight. He couldn't play tonight.
Yeah, the turnovers are an issue, and we want to hear from you. #SNRaps. Let us know. We're on the web tonight, not on the radio. Can we take calls on the web?
Yeah, we can.
All right.
You can call us, 1-888-666-0590. Papa will hook you up. He'll put you on if your call is good. We had one guy complaining about DeMar DeRozan doing too many crossovers a couple of nights ago. No more of those calls. But this has got some good points.
But
we'll
it's
take
funny because if you're listening to us, you're watching us on the web.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things, I don't know if you had this, where you see someone you know, like let's say in a mall or something, and you call them.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can see them look at the phone and decide if you're going to answer their call. And that's kind of what's going on right now. Like people are going to call. They can see us.
Mm-hmm.
They know we're here. And so if they call and they don't get on, we're actively like pressing ignore on the phone.
Yeah.
Having said that, please call.
That's how this works. That's how.
But on radio, you can't really see us. So there is some mystery there.
Yeah, that's
they
true.
could be busy. They could be in a break.
It's like, did you watch Black Mirror, the Archangel episode?
I don't remember the names, but I watched
There was
every one.
Yeah, there was the one where the mom, she can see her kid and everything she does.
Oh, yeah.
That's
was a
us.
bad one. That was a bad
That
one.
was a bad one, but that's us. We're the kids on Archangel right now. So again, a couple of tweets, and I want to go back to the fourth quarter. Bozy B, Ivan the Bose 89 tweets in, there's no curse, just a coach who can't draw up an offensive play that doesn't have a pick, curl, or three-pointer.
Shots fired.
I mean, there's a lot of things.
Yeah, most offensive plays have one of those three things.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't know really what you want. I guess at that point, you just want ISO. That's kind of what the Raptors have been criticized for in the past.
He just wants a post up.
But he says this team needs to live by more than just the three-point shot. Let's get to that. The threes, right? The threes.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the Raptors' big bugaboo. And going into the season, everybody was going to shoot more. But you asked me, like, who's going to hit threes if it's not CJ Miles? Fred VanVleet's been great. He's taken more shots in March. He now closes March. Took more three-point shots in March than he did any other month in his career. And I feel confident in Fred VanVleet. And again, he had that beautiful three right at the end of the first quarter. The Raptors subbed him in with like 25 seconds left, gets the pump fake because defenses now respect him and they know who Fred VanVleet is. He knocked it down. DeLon Wright has been better. He's a 35% three-point shooter on a couple threes a game. He's taken more this season than he ever has in his career. And I guess not saying too much considering the injuries.
Better is relative. No one is
Right.
is bringing him up on the whiteboard and saying, you know what? Got to take away the three from him.
no doubt. All of a sudden, Pascal Siakam has been a little bit more credible from outside, but again, it's not really a part of his game just yet. OG Anunoby fell off a cliff. Every once in a while, he knocks one down, but again, if you get a three-point shot from OG Anunoby near the other defense, you're quite happy about it. I wonder where your thought is on DeMar DeRozan when it comes to three-point shooting right now, because again, I think he was 0 for tonight. Yeah, he was 0 for 5. And again, since the All-Star break, he's cooled down a little bit. He was shooting 32% before. Now he's dropped down to 26% since the All-Star break.
Yeah, them threes were not a strong suit today for a team who threes were an emphasis, part of the cultural reset. And let's see that reset against a real defense, against a real Eastern Conference contender. And they hit their first 4. Then it was downhill, and they finished 8 of 35. So let's go through it. Who's going to hit some threes? OG, 1 of 2. Okay, we'll take that. Serge, 3 for 3. We'll definitely take that rested Serge. Go ahead, Serge. Jonas, 0 for 1. Okay, you just took 1. All right. Shoot your shot.
Again, not a guy that in the playoffs you should be relying on.
Nobody's scaring. DeMar, 0 for 5. Now it gets dark. Kyle, 2 for 10. You know what? I'll live with that. Somewhere he checks and transition. That'll. Some nights he'll go 8 for 10. I'll live with that. Now it gets real dark. CJ, 0 for 5. Van Vliet, 2 for 5. That's good. Pascal, 0 for 1. DeLon, 0 for 1. Norm, 0 for 2.
He started the game like 5 of 11 for 3 in the first quarter, too. And then just like everything just completely fell off.
But again, Serge didn't play a lot of minutes in the second half because of the foul trouble. They're having more and more empty possessions because of the turnovers. And the Celtics, on the other hand, who value the ball, value possessions, you know how many turnovers they had? 5.
Yeah, Celtics did a much better job taking care of the basketball. And again, as has been pointed out by a few people on Twitter, that was a big cause of concern for the Raptors. I wonder if, like, what's concerning you right now? Like, where's the Donnovan Bennett, hey, this is the concerning rankings? Because, again, we're not trying to do the Chicken Little show. And the Raptors overall, I still believe are, again, things that don't change. Raptors still have their best chance of making an NBA Finals in the history of the team. This is the best team they've ever had. But a couple things are changing. All of a sudden, the Celtics are right on your tail for that that 1 seed. That was something that we weren't really sure was going to be a thing. And now it's kind of a thing. Like, they're 2 games back, and they've got a game to play against you, which if they win, they're going to have the tiebreaker on you. I don't like the Raptors in the 2 seed. I think having the 1 seed is very important. Again, DeMar DeRozan, the 3-point shooting falling off. The defense taking a step back. Again, just really struggling against top defenses or top offenses in the NBA. We brought this up after the Nuggets game, but John Schumann of NBA.com tweeting out that the Raptors, their defense against offenses ranked 1 through 10 are ranked 29th in the NBA. And again, there were moments in tonight's game where that Celtics team missing Kyrie Irving, just defense just not good enough, not there. Like, what are you looking at right now and saying, I'm not worried about that? And then what are you looking at and saying, but this is a thing?
I am worried about the turnovers. You can't beat another good basketball team when you turn the ball over 26 times. 26 empty possessions against a defense that's already good. And you turn them over. So it's not like it's a pace thing. You only turn them over 5 times. In a game that was, for most of it, a 1-possession, 2-possession game, and it ended an 11-point game, you had you had 21 chances given up.
But are you worried about the turnovers long term? Because I feel like that's something that they'll be able to tighten up. DeMar DeRozan's been a better facilitator this season. He's got a great handle. Same with Fred VanVleet. They go to those 3-guard lineups. The dude who was a little off tonight in his minutes was DeLon. He had a few bad turnovers, 1 bad offensive foul, bricked that one up against the rim from one of the most beautiful passes of the season from Fred VanVleet. But ultimately, you've got 4 guys that I feel pretty comfortable with handling the ball and moving the basketball. And again, we've talked even about that 5th guy would almost be Pascal Siakam at this point. So turnovers to me, not a long-term issue.
Here's and I agree, not a long-term issue, but here's why I'm a little bit concerned. Because again, when they went to that zone and they packed the paint and they forced you to pass through long arms or shoot long contested shots, they didn't do either very well. And they made the adjustment. Give Brad Stevens credit. Serge and Jonas both had 10 points in the first half. Both were beasting down low. I said, all right, fine. We can't grow at halftime. So we're going to pack the paint. Serge ends up with 15. Jonas ends up with 13. A combined 8 points in the second half when both of them had 10 in the first half. If we know DeMar DeRozan loves the mid-range, loves to get to the rim. If you can't do that, what's the next play? Like, in the playoffs, teams are going to make you play left-handed. I'm going to take away your best two things. Beat me with your third. Does this team have a third offensively? That's the question. And I think the turnovers are a byproduct of that.
I've said before that the third man of the Raptors is the bench, is the depth. That on any given night, somebody's going to step up and give you something. That it's going to be one night where it's going to be Fred, another night where it's going to be Pascal. Maybe one night it's DeLon Wright. Maybe another night it's Yak. Tonight, I thought that Serge Ibaka gave you what you need in terms of being that third wheel, in terms of being the guy that they went out and got at the deadline and who they thought they were getting, saying, you know what? Here he is. We've been clamoring for him forever. That stretch four, that guy who can defend multiple positions, switch out onto a bunch of people, be a decent partner next to Jonas Valanciunas in the starting lineup, and who can get you some buckets. And you saw a good Serge today. Good Serge was back. Rested Serge continues to be a thing. I thought Serge Ibaka was great on both ends. So I'll put that in a positive because I really did like his game from start to finish. And so much of it does go with the efficiency of him because he is a player that, again, can be a ball stopper, can be someone that takes those long twos, can be someone that misses a ton of good looks from three and frustrates the hell out of you. And when that goes away, there's too many times where he puts the ball on the deck and makes bad decisions because he's not a great passer. He does put the head down and he tries to go to that floater, which is inconsistent to say the least about it. But again, tonight, 5 of 7 from the floor for Serge. Knocked down all of his three-point shots, hit his free throws, ended up with 10 rebounds, which, as you've lamented many times, is not his strong suit. For a guy who's 6'10", you'd usually expect a few more rebounds from that guy. 10 tonight.
I will say that some of that criticism on him is a bit unfair.
Because of the help side blocks?
Not just that, because if he's supposed to be the guy who is guarding on the perimeter, helping and switching on pick and rolls, if he's 21 feet from the basket, he can't get defensive rebounds. And again, if he's a guy who's supposed to be picking and popping and giving you some spacing in that starting unit when most of those guys other than Kyle don't shoot threes, he can't get rebounds when he's 21, 22, 23 feet from the basket. It was the same criticism that Chris Bosh had in Miami, and a lot of it was the geometry and where he was on the floor when the ball was up in the air going towards the rim.
We're going to talk to Paul Jones later in the show. Of course, he was there. Going to connect with him. What did you think of, and again, I want to get more of his thoughts on rested Serge, but it all starts at a defensive end for him, and it all starts from knocking down open shots. And he did both those things tonight, and he brought great energy. And again, if I'm the Raptors, I'm throwing him in the cryogenic chamber, and I'm just saying, yo, we'll see you come playoff time. Although the equation changes a little bit, considering, again, that they're only up 2 games on the Celtics. They're going to have to play them again. Oof. For the Celtics to be missing those guys, to be missing Kyrie Irving and to lose those games, that's disheartening. Like,
missing Kyrie, missing Smart, missing Larkin.
Yeah.
Still win.
Larkin. Those are all the same guy.
He's a rotation player that they're missing. And when Kyrie's not playing, he's even more valuable. Yeah. Anyway. That's like the Raptors missing Lowry and Fred.
Yeah. I think Fred's a little bit more valuable, but yeah. What did you think of the crunch time lineup? Because I understood CJ Miles being out there even amidst all of his struggles. Because, again, you're down. You're down 10 points. They stretched it to a 10-point lead. You're going to need some three-point shooting. You're going to need some floor spacing. And you think that, again, this is a guy who should be shooting closer to 40%, only 33 since the All-Star break, as I was saying before. But that he should be able to knock down a couple of shots for you. I get why he's out there. I didn't really get what the purpose for having OG out there was.
Reward him for a good first half.
He had some moments.
Had a nasty facial attempt on Baines. Where
he went up. He tried to get it.
Yeah, one of the most exciting dunks of the year. I think the issue is, and this may have been part of the reason why OG was on the floor, they got stuck playing Giannis and Jakob together. And they're looking at each other like, do you want to go out and guard the three-point line? I don't. You want to do it this time, and I'll do it next time? We'll paper, rock, scissors for it. And so you maybe go to OG because he can help in that aspect because he can play a little bit bigger than his size. But when Pascal doesn't have it going and when Serge is in foul trouble, we talked about lack of depth at the three. All of a sudden, those 3.5 fours, you've got a real issue. And that's when Morris started to really cook, is when he was getting to his spots, felt really comfortable, was taking confident shots, making them, and then talking a lot of talk.
Here's my thing. Actually, you know what? I'll start with the positive with OG. The positive was at the beginning of that second half, he looked pretty good. And I've said this to you, and we were talking about it during the game. Dude is really a smart basketball player. Probably gets too little credit for the basketball IQ. It's one of the reasons that he's been able to survive when a lot of the other things have failed him, considering the rookie wall. Makes really good passes. Every once in a while, just like anyone else, he can make the mistake of trying to take a shot when he should give it up. But most of the time, if he sees somebody open under the bucket, he finds them. If someone goes to him, he'll make a good pass. Great cutter. Like just a really smart basket cutter. And Lowry found him for an easy one of his 8 points, just for a quick, simple jam because he can cut to the basket. He's a smart player. He knows where to go on the floor. So that's the good. That's the good with OG Anunoby. One of his better games since, I don't know, last 2 months. Actually showed you some things. Gave you a couple of different looks. Played okay defensively at times, but ultimately that's where I'm going with the bad. I don't know anybody that can really start defending the whole OG Anunoby is this defensive stopper thing anymore. Because to me, it seems painfully obvious that when he's on the floor and the Raptors don't have JV out there and that teams aren't trying to put JV in every single screen and roll action or every isolation play, that they're attacking young OG Anunoby. And there was a couple of times he got switched out on Al Horford, and you could just see Al Horford light up like, oh, dinner. I'm about to cook this kid. And he did it every single time. And that's why I didn't really understand him out there late is he can't really handle the basketball. He's not a reliable three-point shooter right now. And he's someone that they're going to attack when you need stops. Like I didn't understand that play. I don't know what Dwayne Casey does. Again, maybe when we talk to Paul Jones, someone's going to ask him about that crunch time lineup, but my guy is Fred VanVleet now. Like for a really long time, I don't know how you have a crunch time lineup without Fred VanVleet against basically any roster.
How dare you say the words, my guy, followed by Fred VanVleet?
Listen, I gave up on my Fred VanVleet hate 2 weeks in a season. You can't live like this forever.
But you can't go from hate to my guy.
He's my guy now.
No,
Fred VanVleet, my guy in crunch time.
No,
I want to go to Fred VanVleet.
He is actually my guy. Thank you.
Listen, you can't have all the guys. You're like the whole team is all your guys. Who's not your guy? Norm is your guy.
Pascal is your guy.
Okay, so we're staking this out.
You claimed Pascal early. Yeah. I as much as I like him, I'm not going to steal your Pascal thunder. But don't be acting like you were on the Fred VanVleet train early because you weren't.
Listen, bet on yourself, all right? I've always said that. Day one, Fred VanVleet. I'm just saying at this point, it's strange not to see him out there in crunch time. I wonder when the last time that happened was that he was healthy, available, and didn't play the final few minutes of a game.
Yeah, it's a good point. You mentioned the back cut by OG, and they were getting a lot of back cuts early in the game. They were getting a lot of dump offs to whether it was Jonas or Yak up in the dunker position, and all they had to do is finish. And the Celtics are a great on-ball defensive team.
Mm-hmm.
Your first action, your second action, it's going to be tough to score. But you loosen up the defense a little bit, maybe some dribble penetration, you can get to the rim because the rim protection is not great. Again, they went zone. All of that stuff went away. You know, in rec basketball or backyard basketball or driveway basketball, where it's one check. You check it at the top and it's one pass. You can't just shoot off the top. And the guy who checks it like lays right off, like is really like walking way back, forcing you to make a pass. That's pretty much what the Celtics did. Mm-hmm. They're like, we don't think any of you not named Kyle Lowry can step into a three-point shot.
So what do you do then there? Because I thought that they didn't have enough Jonas Valanciunas in the second half. That they went away from it, and all of a sudden the game was out of reach, and they couldn't go to him because they needed threes, and that was a little bit of a miscalculation, that they probably could have gone to JV a little bit earlier. Again, not his best game against the Celtics. Early, he was missing some bunnies. Serge was the better big tonight. Normally, JV is a guy who puts the Celtics in his pocket and rolls. He wasn't amazing. 13 points, 6 of 12. It's okay. He had a pretty good game. But I did think that the Raptors went away from him a little bit. And again, if you want to try to change something, I don't like the amount of threes they shot. You mentioned playing left-handed. I thought that's exactly what the Celtics did. And this has been one of my causes of concern over the last few games against some of these elite teams is I keep getting the sense that against the Cavaliers, and now against the Celtics, and for moments against the Thunder, that the good teams are doing a really good job of getting the Raptors to play the game they want to play. And the Raptors aren't doing a good enough job otherwise.
They want to play as in fast?
Honestly, I thought the Celtics late in that game wanted to slow it down and force the Raptors to take some threes. And the Raptors just kind of obliged and said, listen, we'll keep chucking those up. We'll make DeMar DeRozan take the basketball out of his hands, or if not, we'll make him pull up for a long two. And listen, if we're going to be criticizing everybody for that game, and we're going to look at all the different reasons why the Raptors lost, a little bit of it has to fall on the stars. Again, this something Michael Grange wrote heading into this ball game was what these two teams look like in late and tight games. They've both played in 3-point ball games. Let me pull this up. This was from Michael Grange's article heading into today. 12 3-point games the Raptors have played in this season. They're 5-7 of them. Boston's played in 19 of those games, and they're 11-8. They've been the better crunch time team. They've been the better late fourth quarter team in these close games. And again, it was 94-94, and then Boston went on a 6-0 run. And part of that 6-0 run involved DeMar DeRozan handling the basketball and coming down the floor, pulling up for a really long two, a bad two that ended up going the other way for a transition bucket. It involved DeMar DeRozan turning a ball over, running down the floor, throwing it to trying to get it to Kyle Lowry, but missed him by like 5 feet. It was a rocket pass, went out of bounds. Celtics scored on the ensuing possession. The next time down the floor, DeMar DeRozan has it in his hands, puts it over to OG Anunoby late in the clock. Again, the rookie without a handle has to try to make a play, dribbling the ball into the middle of the floor, bounces it off his foot, goes the other way, another bucket.
I'm hard-pressed to criticize DeMar when he had 32, 7, and 7 against a good defensive team.
5 of those assists in the first quarter, 28 of those points in the first 3 quarters. It's not about him having a bad game as a whole. Like, I'm not saying DeMar DeRozan played a bad basketball game. I'm saying that he could have played a better fourth quarter. He only had 4 points.
Kyle Lowry only had 11 points in the game.
Yeah.
Like,
there you go. That's what I'm asking you. Like, which one of those 2 stars down the stretch do you point to? Because Lowry, I thought, was very absent in the fourth quarter.
Well, he wasn't absent when he was impacting the game by missing 8 3-point shots.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not upset that he took 10, but if we're talking about why they lost, I think Lowry has more to do with it than DeMar. Here's the thing, though, because if they get the Celtics this week and beat them, this is much to do about nothing.
Mm.
And so if you're a Raptors fan, we want to know, 1-888-660-590, 1-888-660-590, hashtag SNRaps. Does this change your perception of the threat level, something we used to do on the podcast, Free Association podcast? JD's going to badger you sometime in this hour to download, listen, like, subscribe.
You should always do all those things.
Does this change the threat level with which you see the Boston Celtics? Because
no,
you were on record as saying, I ain't scared.
I'm not scared of the Celtics.
You're a bone crusher, never scared.
I am never scared. I'm never scared of the Boston Celtics.
So,
I think that the Raptors match up against them well. I don't think DeRozan's afraid of them. I think that JV is a problem that they don't really have an answer for. I think Kyrie is great, but I also think that he would have been taking some possessions away from some other really hot players in that game. Again, Jason Tatum was excellent. I don't fear him as a rookie, though, in a postseason. I think that it takes you a little while. The Celtics, with their full team, with full health next year, are going to be really tough. But as of right now, I think the Raptors give Boston a lot of matchup problems.
So, and again, just to make sure we're clear,
mm-hmm.
You felt that the Raptors were the clear team to beat in the East.
Yep.
Boston not a threat, and that Cleveland had to prove themselves as the top challenger in the East.
And they did.
In the last 20 games for Boston and Cleveland,
mm-hmm.
they've won a combined 15 of those 20. They're 15-5.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still feel that Toronto has the conch? They're the team to be feared in the East, and those guys
no
have to catch them.
No, Cleveland's the team to be feared in the East.
Okay.
Well, it's just a fact. At this point, the Raptors have slowed down.
I don't disagree.
Listen, there's segments of the season, right? Like a lot of coaches do this, and this is like a Mike Babcock thing, right? They break down the season into segments. Mike Babcock does hey, you got 5 games here. What are you going to be in 5 games? What are you going to be in the next 5 games? Again, the Raptors in their last 6 are 3-3, and they haven't looked very good. And it's one thing when you play a sloppy basketball game against the Clippers on a Sunday afternoon. It's another thing when it's a Tuesday night and you have an opportunity to go into Boston's gym and ice up the first, being the 1 seed. Like, again, the turnovers that you mentioned, that's a pretty inexcusable sign. Seeing Kyle Lowry all of a sudden go ice cold in that game, that's a tough one. That's a reminder. Seeing DeMar DeRozan disappear a little bit in that fourth or have his game change and not be able to adapt to it and find something else to contribute is a little scary. And I'm not scared of the Celtics. I think the Raptors still have the conch, as you put it. If it was a matchup with Boston tomorrow, I'd still feel very confident. I'd be thrilled if somehow the Raptors ended up in an Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics and not the Cleveland Cavaliers. But no, it's still LeBron's conference. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter if George Hill goes down. It doesn't matter if Kyle Korver goes down, who they've got injured. As long as the king is reigning and he's playing the way that he is right now and talking about how he should be the MVP, how he should be getting votes, it's still his conference. I think that's level has changed.
Don't say sorry to me.
I'm not sorry to you.
Because I've been saying it's LeBron's conference.
Listen, the Raptors for a while.
He's 33.
The Raptors for a while and had the conch. They did. They've since lost the conch. They're heading into the postseason and they're doing some things that probably scare some of the fan base that was worried about some of these things. One is, again, sustainable 3-point shots. The other is, as I mentioned, that their defense has not been able to establish the same presence or anywhere close to it against top 10 offenses. Again, it's that your star player at some moments over this stretch, DeMar DeRozan, has not looked like the DeMar DeRozan of the entire regular season. Like, that's the first game where through 3 quarters over this last stretch where DeMar has looked like DeMar, where DeMar was getting to the spots that he wanted to and scoring the buckets that he wanted to. By the way, this is what you're hoping for. Iggy at JLane01 tweeted in, good loss. Maybe it'll wake us up before heading into the playoffs. Since that Houston game, we haven't played well.
That's what I'm hoping for?
No. I'm saying that's what he's hoping for. Brennan Delaney tweets in at Brennan Delaney. Turnovers killed him. Reminded me of the game against the Pacers, but the Celtics aren't the Pacers. They have to stop shooting so many threes as well.
Brendan Delaney has a perfect participation record.
Yeah, he does. He's been good. I'll say that, though. That all goes back to what I said about not using Jonas Valanciunas in that fourth quarter. Not putting JV out there and playing right into Boston's hand. Boston saying, oh, you want to stretch it out? You want to let CJ Miles, who's ice cold, airball a 3? No sweat. You want to let OG Anunoby dribble the ball off his foot? We'll allow it. You want to let DeMar DeRozan dribble into traffic and try to find somebody at the 3-point line? We'll figure something out. We'll make a stop.
You mentioned what Boston made Toronto do, or what Toronto obliged to do. Does this, and I'm only asking you this for the theatrics because I know the answer, because I have the wonderful opportunity to watch these games with you. Does this change the Coach of the Year race in the NBA? This being this game, because the 1A, 1B candidates were Dwayne Casey and Brad Stevens in some order.
Can I just say that I think that we've actually really neglected Mike D'Antoni in the Coach of the Year race? I don't really know why he's been someone that gets overlooked, because his team is going to finish first in a conference that has the Golden State Warriors, injuries or not. That the injuries didn't affect the Warriors catching them this year. They established an incredible pace. They've played amazing defense since P.J. Tucker came into the starting lineup. Again, a signing that he had his fingerprints all over.
He did, or Chris Paul did?
Over them bringing in P.J. Tucker?
Yeah.
You think they gave Chris Paul personnel decision-making at that point?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're boys from Carolina.
Either way, D'Antoni has fit in a star seamlessly. People talk about roster turnover and as one of the defenses for, or one of the reasons to give it to Brad Stevens. And I'm here for that reason. And I think it's a really valid reason. But I'm just saying that D'Antoni is kind of slipping under the radar. Like, if I had a vote, I'd give it to Mike D'Antoni. His team is first in the NBA. He's fit 2 stars together where there was question marks. Don't you remember that time where people were saying, hey, who's going to take the shots? How are they going to handle the basketball?
Yeah,
too many.
We said it.
Right.
We said it
there
on
were
our
question
podcast.
marks. So, and he's figured it out seamlessly. They've been amazing with Chris Paul. Like, I want their record with Chris Paul is eye-popping. They just basically don't lose with him. That's why the Raptors winning that game against them on that Friday night was conch central. That's when the Raptors had the conch. that Friday night when over 1 million people watched spawned this show. All of a sudden, Raptors not even close to that, as that commenter just said. Haven't looked the same since Houston. Haven't looked the same since the streak. They kind of lost a little mojo after the streak. I'm just saying that for the Coach of the Year candidacy, I think it was already neck and neck and neck. And to me, Dwayne Casey has fallen into third, maybe even fourth behind Terry Stotts.
I think the Raptors are the number 1 seed in the East. Dwayne Casey is putting something on his trophy case.
He gets it? I don't think so.
I do.
So here's the case for Stevens over him is that he's had all this roster turnover, but also had to deal with these injuries. Like he lost Gordon Hayward in the first game of the season. And now he's lost Kyrie Irving for an extremely long stretch, and his team hasn't dropped off. They've won 6 games heading in the playoffs. Again, they have a real chance at passing the Raptors now. If they finish a game behind them, roster to roster, again, who would you trade from Boston's bench for Toronto's right now?
I like Rozier.
Yeah, I like Rozier too. I'd hear that. Who else? The answer is nobody.
Okay, fair. But coming into this season, who would you trade from Toronto's bench to Boston's bench? I mean, Toronto's bench is very good, true.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to penalize Dwayne Casey because he developed a bench of guys who were playing at this time last year for a G League championship.
I'm just saying.
That, to me, that builds up his
So then maybe Jerry
resume.
Stackhouse should be Coach of the Year.
In a couple of years when he's coaching in Milwaukee, he will be.
He might be Orlando's coach next year. So
it's another
enjoy your time with Jerry Stackhouse while it lasts. At Rome, his Twitter handle is at Rome, and then it's at Roro25 tweets in. Maybe it's time to move OG to the bench and start Norm. OG hasn't played the same D since the injury. Defense is the issue. Hashtag SN Raps. Listen, I agree. OG's defense. I half agree with this. One, OG's defense has been bad, as we touched on earlier in the show. If you watch the games, teams are attacking him. Teams are not afraid of OG Anunoby. There's nobody that's looking and saying, "Oh, OG's here. Better swing the ball. Better move the ball." He's a rookie, and he's showing signs of being a rookie. But I actually thought he played a pretty good game tonight offensively. We mentioned the basket cutting, the smarts, the passing. He did some good things tonight. This wasn't OG's worst game. Hard for me. In a matchup against the Celtics, I could actually see the case for Norm down the stretch there because they go a little bit guard heavier. You could see scenarios if they did play Boston where you'd want to see a few minutes of Norm on Kyrie Irving, right? Like you're not going to go through a series with the Boston Celtics and see no Norm on Kyrie. That's not happening.
Yeah, but the other issue that Boston presents is those long wings.
Yeah, and that's very true. And the Raptors don't have it. Pascal Siakam, again, we're talking about guys who have had bad games. He's been revolutionary for the Raptors and a guy who's been getting better, even throughout some of this dip in play from some of the other players, some of the dip in production that we've seen since the All-Star break, some of the dip in production we've seen since the streak was snapped against, who'd they lose to? The Thunder was the streak snapper? I forget.
Yes.
I think it was. I think the Thunder were the streak snappers. The little bit of different energy we've seen, still really, really good. Pascal Siakam. Tonight, 16 minutes, 2 points, minus 11, 2 rebounds, a turnover.
I don't know if Siakam has been revolutionary.
He has been.
I think he's been a revelation. I don't know if he's been revolutionary. Like, he hasn't changed.
You don't think he's starting a revolution in Toronto? People wanted him to be starting. They want him to start at the 4. That's the revolution. He's the uprising.
He's the Northern Uprising?
Yes.
Theoretical question for you and for our listeners. SN Raps is the hashtag 1-888-6605-90. Those pesky Brooklyn Nets are about to go into overtime against the pesky Miami Heat.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Do you care the outcome of that score? Like, are we at the point where you're watching the 8th seed and saying, man, I don't know, do I want to see Whiteside? Do I want to see Giannis?
Here's the
Is there a way Washington falls that far now that John Wall's back and we know the Wizards aren't better with Wall somehow?
We don't know that. We don't know that.
Marcin Gortat knows that.
We don't know that. Let me tell you about scoreboard watching.
Bradley Beal knows that.
I was having a lot more fun scoreboard watching a week ago when I thought that the Raptors had already sealed up one. Now I'm kind of just like...
A week ago.
Now I'm just watching the Celtics scores and the Raptors scores for the meantime. And then the next one down from that is Cleveland because... I pointed this out to you. It's looking more and more realistic that the Raptors play Cleveland in round 2 if they finish with the 1 seed. All of a sudden, maybe there's a path. Hey, whoa. That's the silver lining potentially to the Raptors finishing in the 2 hole.
I mean, listen,
Just hear me out.
They're 2 games up with 6 games to play.
Right. What? Except for one against the Celtics.
True. And
Celtics would have the tiebreaker and one against the Cavs.
And one against Cleveland.
So let me sell you on that silver lining, although this would be tough to do considering they need to win the game against the Cavs.
Let's hear
if the
Bradley
Raptors
Cooper.
did finish second, this is going to be a little convoluted. I'm going to try to make this really tight. If the Raptors finish second,
that would be a first.
There's a real scenario where the Cavs could fall to fourth because they're a half game up on the 76ers going into tonight. And the Sixers play them one more time, but that's the only game the Sixers have left on the schedule. They don't have Joel Embiid, so you'd think the Cavs would have the definite advantage. They're probably going to be minus 6.5 point favorites heading in that game. So they'll have the advantage in that one game. But other than that, you look at the Sixers schedule. Let me pull it up here. It is a murderer's row of bad. They play the Charlotte Hornets, the Brooklyn Nets, the Detroit Pistons, the Dallas Mavericks, the Atlanta Hawks, and then they close their season with the Milwaukee Bucks. So if you're looking at that, you're right. The Nets are still kind of pesky. That's a half frisky team. Maybe Cavs, and then the Bucks. So at worst, I'm looking at that schedule and seeing 2 losses. I'm looking at the Cavs schedule and saying they still got the Raptors. That's not going to be easy. They've still got the Wizards, who I still believe that they're going to be better than John Wall. And they've got that Sixers game. If the Cavs slip out and the Raptors slip out, then all is good in the world. But I'd still probably prefer the Raptors finish first. I'm not worried about who's finishing in the 7th seed or the 8th seed anymore. That's all done. I'm not worried about whether the Raptors are going to finish ahead of the Warriors anymore because that, again, also feels a little done. It's hard for me to imagine that after tonight when the Warriors beat the Sacramento Kings, which they will. They just got Klay Thompson back. They got Draymond back. They got KD back.
Well, they're only up 3 in the second.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I'm not worried about the Raptors finishing ahead of the Warriors anymore. That's gone. I'm worried about the Raptors finishing ahead of the Celtics and the Cavaliers staying where they are if the Raptors do so.
Philly is a half a game back, but they do have a game in hand. Those teams are tied in the loss column.
Listen, it's real.
Cleveland, though, has the tiebreaker as of right now. They still play one more time. Milwaukee, quiet as kept, doesn't have the tiebreaker. So even though Miami and Milwaukee have the same record,
I'm not worrying about that.
Milwaukee is in 8th. In your convoluted world, Raptors fall to 2. The path to the finals
Could, that's what I'm saying.
could be a lot easier, assuming
Could be.
you don't get Cleveland.
I'm just saying nothing's locked up right now.
Because because you also are missing Philly, most likely. So your second round matchup is some version of the Wizards, Indiana, Miami, depending on who comes out of that.
Yeah, I can't be worried about that right now. I can't. I just can't do it. Joining us online, Paul Jones, down there tonight, called this game. How's it going, Jonesy?
I'm good, fellas. How are you?
Doing okay. We got some questions, though. We're wondering if Coach Casey at the end of the game addressed the crunch time lineup because Donovan and I were discussing that maybe they fell into a bit of a trap going away from Jonas Valanciunas when the scoring streak started happening, when the Raptors fell into that 10-0 run. And it was a little odd to not see Fred VanVleet and see the likes of OG Anunoby out there.
Well, I don't know if you are looking at it. OG's not a fourth quarter guy. Fred is the Raptor leader in fourth quarter minutes. So, at that point, that could be a legit concern. But a lot of this was self-inflicted, regardless of who was on the floor. The Raptors were 7 of 21 with 7 turnovers. 7 turnovers. They had 8 for the first 3 quarters. Mm-hmm. They're one of the better teams in the NBA at protecting the ball. And off those 7 turnovers, they gave up 11 points. That's Toronto's MO. They're one of the best in the NBA in scoring points off turnovers. And what they did was, look, for the first 3 quarters, the pace of the game was Toronto's. And Boston was just kind of hanging on and hanging in the fight. And then in the fourth quarter, they turned the pace into theirs. It became grimy, and it slowed down. They did a good job of playing their 2-3 zone. It gave the Raptors a different look. It forced the game to slow down. I thought it was at 67-61. The Raptors were up 6 in the third quarter, and the Celtics were kind of teetering. And all of a sudden, Brad Stevens called a timeout, and that was a tipping point right there. Toronto needed a couple of stops and scores, and all of a sudden it's a double-figure lead, and the tenor of the game changes. I think, dramatically. So I give Boston credit, and they did a great job in that fourth quarter. No question about that.
I really love that you brought up pace and who dictated that late in the game, because it's something that we were discussing a little earlier too. Is one of the things I didn't like about the Cleveland game was that early in the game it felt like Cleveland wanted to play a certain style and Toronto fell right into it, and it dictated basically the rest of the ball game. And late in that game, the Celtics felt like, yeah, like you mentioned, everything that you said I agree with. And I wonder if there's something that you're looking at right now over this last little span of games where the Raptors have struggled. The turnovers are something that you and I and Donovan probably all agree. It's tough to imagine that that's going to be a long-term issue because they've done such a good job at protecting the ball. They have so many reliable ball handlers. It's hard for me to say, oh, I'm really worried about them having that many turnovers in the future. But is there one thing that tonight cropped up yet again that you're looking at and saying, you know what, I'm flagging this. This is something that I'm really watching out for over the next couple of games. I'd like to see the Raptors do better in this area before they hit the playoffs.
It's been a bunch of different things, JD, over the course of these games. In Oklahoma against Oklahoma City and Cleveland, it was the defense. Here in this game, it was the turnovers. I mean, they Oklahoma City scored 35 points in the fourth quarter. Cleveland shot 60-odd% for the game. They helped off the strong side, and Kevin Love knocks down a three when they help on LeBron. Tonight, they held Boston to 9 of 21. It's not like the Celtics shot lights out in the fourth quarter. 9 of 21 is nothing to write home about, but I wonder how many of those 9, I'll have to go back and look at the video, how many of those 9 came off Raptor turnovers, live ball turnovers, where it's a broken floor 3-on-1 or 4-on-1, and it's 4-on-2, and it's difficult to stop. I mean, that's I guess there isn't one thing in particular I would flag, JD and Donovan. It's a number of things, making sure that you are trying to, contain the damage. Don't turn it over. Make sure you get good shots. Play good defense. There's lots of variables there that, all it takes is for one of them to get out of whack, and you've got a problem.
Man, that's almost worse.
It is. Paul, modern day NBA and Boston is a great example of this. You want your wings to be 3 and D guys, or at the very least, do one of those things at an extremely elite level. CJ Miles, 5 of his last 29 from 3, didn't hit a shot tonight. 5 fouls, struggled staying in front of his man defensively. Your level of concern with the way CJ's playing going into the playoffs is what?
No, he's just been inconsistent, guys, and I think it is a concern. You brought him here to have a guy to make shots and stretch the floor, and when he's going well on the offensive end, you can hide one guy on defense. I don't know if you can hide 2 or 3, but even tonight, Dwayne Casey went back to him because all he needs to do is see 1 or 2 go through the hoop, and you've got a different player on your hands. But it's concerning, and he's a guy that the Raptors look at and say, this guy's got to find his way offensively. We brought him here to make shots. He's got to find his way offensively to be able to help us out.
Yeah, shooting 33% since the All-Star break from 3. It's like that's a pretty troubling number for, again, as you mentioned, a guy who's pretty one-dimensional. It's not like you watch CJ Miles and say, yeah, you know what, he's going to be able to get to the basket, he's going to be able to get fouled. Oh, yeah, you know what, he'll be able to get some stops for you. And he's a guy that the Raptors need because, again, if they're going to be knocking down shots or from outside, or they're going to be falling down in some of these games to teams, you're going to need him. You're going to need him to be an option. I wonder what you think about his shot selection, though, because that's still a bit of an issue to me, because it's one thing when you're playing when you're playing against teams and you're with the second unit and they don't have a lot of guys that can create for themselves and you're coming off of screens. But I feel like it's a whole nother proposition when he's taking those deep ones, those contested ones, when DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry are on the floor and rotations are tightening up and you're playing with more reliable offensive players.
Look, he's not turning down shots, and I think that's a good thing. It's when he stops taking them and stops being a threat that's a problem. He can't turn shots down. Some of the shots that we might look at as bad shots, well, that's what he does. He shoots, the catch and shoot. He comes off screens and he knocks shots down. He shoots them from deep. I mean, go back to the Charlotte game where he's having a tough time in over 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden, late in the fourth quarter, the shot clock is early in the fourth quarter, late in the clock. It's running down. There's about 7, 8 minutes to go. He knocks a shot in, and all of a sudden he catches fire. It's a shooter's mentality: miss till you make till you miss. So I like it that he's not turning the shots down, but he's got to start making some of them. Although I will say this, with his reputation, he will always get the attention of the defenses, giving driving lanes to people like Lowry, DeRozan, and space on the inside to guys like Valanciunas and Ibaka.
Yeah, it's never going to be a good thing if he's open taking a three against another defense. Last thing before we let you go, how many games do you play Serge Ibaka? Does it really change considering where the Raptors are at in the standings, or do you try to find a couple of rest days for him down the stretch again, because he was terrific tonight?
Yeah, you can give him some rest, but I would say you rest him in game. Give more time to Siakam, to Pirtle, to Lucas Nogueira. I don't think you just put him in civilian clothing. I think you got to maintain a little bit of a rhythm and let him play a little bit.
Hey, Jonesy, thanks for making time for us tonight, man. We always appreciate it.
Okay, guys.
Cheers.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Paul Jones, Raptors analyst. I agree with him a lot about the CJ Miles stuff, where it's, again, he's a gunner. He's brought in to be a gunner. If he's not making shots, it's really hard to justify playing him. And you saw tonight how he can kill you in a basketball game if he's not making them. And if he's not making those shots, he sure as hell can't turn the ball over 4 times.
I just think if he's not making those shots, he can't play.
Yeah.
Like, he can't have the opportunity.
You need him there, right? Like, he's got to be on the floor, because you mentioned it. You need a little bit of size. You need a little bit of stretch. He's still someone that's going to have some gravity that your defense can't leave wide open. Like, eventually he'll be able to shoot himself into it.
But in basketball, there's no DH. You have to play both ends of the floor. And so you can't, for me, especially when you're down, you don't have the luxury on this team to allow him to find it offensively, because he's not helping you defensively. If he's on the Warriors and he's Nick Young and he's playing with, Kevin Durant and Draymond Green, guys who can, be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year if they're not getting kicked out of 10 games a year for technical fouls, then yeah, sure, you can live with those stretches. But on this team, you can't.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I would have played CJ Miles down the stretch. Jonesy didn't provide us with an answer as to why that wasn't the case tonight, why they did decide to go with CJ Miles. But yeah, I think, again, when you're only up 2 games against the Celtics, you don't have the luxury to let CJ Miles try to find his rhythm tonight. That it's got to be a short leash, and that's the way it's going to be for a lot of these Raptors players. Again, you can always tweet in #SNRaps and SL_16, JD20_fanboy. Maybe he was a fan of me when he was 20, or is he thinking a fan of Josh Donaldson?
I think it would be.
He's 20 times the fan of me.
I think it's the bringer of rain, not the bringer of hot takes.
Said the Raptors finishing second would be a real disappointment. #SNRaps. Completely agree. That would be tough. The only consolation to that would be if Cleveland again finished 4th. But yes, after all this hype, after all this push for respect and for giving the Raptors their due, to go down the stretch and then finish second to a team that wouldn't have Kyrie Irving for the last month of the season, their best player, by a wide margin, I would say, offensively. Yeah, that'd be pretty disappointing. Hard to swallow that one. So again, the Raptors play on Tuesday against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then they play again on Wednesday, right the very next night against the Boston Celtics, the finale. The Raptors, this is going to be really interesting, these next couple of games, because I feel like you're treating them both as playoff games, and you're treating them both as, these are the playoff rosters, these are the tightened up rosters, this is the way that we're going to manage rotations in the postseason. You get a couple of bad minutes, you're coming out of a ball game. I don't see any other way. Like, this is what you're doing. You're trying to lock up that 1 seed, and you're also trying to establish that you still, like, can you get the conch back if you beat both those teams on back-to-back nights?
Well, and remember, Boston has got a road back-to-back. They go to Milwaukee, play in the Bradley Center on Tuesday, 8 o'clock tip on the East. They turn that around, come back to Toronto for an 8 o'clock tip, because that's an ESPN game. So that'll be another high-profile spot for the Raptors to get some national respect. Then they've got Chicago and Atlanta, 2 teams who are willing to roll over and die because they're trying to get lottery picks. But they finish with the Washington Wizards, again on the road. And then, if it even matters at this point, they've got the Brooklyn Nets at home 10 the year on the 11th.
So, yeah, not a sky's falling day, but I think that we're coming down to earth a little bit on the Toronto Raptors down the stretch. It's hard to look at this stuff over this sample size now and say that this is just regular season fatigue, that this is just a team that wants the playoffs to start. Again, this isn't the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are already locked into a spot and are trying to basically string games out. This is now a team that is really in a fight, in a real fight for their playoff positioning. They're turning the ball over. They're playing sloppy. They're not shooting the ball well. They've had inconsistent play from their role players. They've had inconsistent play from their MVP this season, DeMar DeRozan. They haven't seen their bench have quite the same effect because, again, these rotations have been tightened a little bit. The Raptors starters played, though 3 of them anyways, until the 25-second mark of the end of the first quarter. This is now a time where you're going to see more of those guys. You're going to see we're not seeing any more 5-man bench units. I don't think anyway. Not unless the Raptors starters play horribly, and you don't want that anyways. But let's end on a positive note.
Okay. What you got?
Joel Embiid, who's hurt.
This is positive? How?
Let me tell you. He has time on his hands.
Okay.
And when Joel Embiid has time on his hands,
He tweets at Rihanna.
he tweets at Rihanna. And don't I love it? Tweeted at her tonight, babe, are you single or not? At Rihanna. I love Joel Embiid.
I can't wait for the 30 for 30, or I guess it'll be 60 for 60 by that point.
Yeah.
Or the SN presents
What's the
on Joel Embiid, because like we know so much about him, and he's super fascinating. Imagine like the stories of just
dude?
8 of his teammates who don't care, telling all the background stories about him.
I'm just so happy that he's been healthy for most of this season. Because Joel Embiid, like I said, when he's hurt, the one side effect is you get a little bit more tweeting. But the tweeting has less of an effect if he's just a Band-Aid, if he's someone who couldn't play all season long. But, of course, Markelle Fultz comes in, hurts him, fractures his orbital bone, knocks him out for whatever. But, yeah, babe, are you single or not is now up to 14,000 retweets, 33,000 likes. And then he followed up by saying, process, stop. I thought you were an all-star. So, like, he's right. He's coming back at it. Like, he wants to get back with Rihanna. This is going to be the thing to watch tonight. This was going to be our positive. Yeah, Raptors lose, again, to the Boston Celtics. They're only 2 games up. They've been 3-3 over 6. That the Celtics have closed the gap. Celtics have won 6 straight. Dwayne Casey maybe lost the Coach of the Year vote or 2. Serge Ibaka played well. A couple of the bench guys did not. We're back Tuesday. We're back Wednesday. Again, you can always tweet us at SNWraps or hashtag SNWraps, at JD Bunkis, at Donnovan Bennett. Thanks again to Hal behind the glass. I see my guy Vic is here. Thanks to Ryan Clark. And thanks to our producer, Papa. Big Papa. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.